Hi, my name is Juan. I am just one reader, and today I wanted to talk briefly about being a bilingual reader. Now, this topic is enough for a doctoral thesis or a dissertation, so I just want to briefly mention some aspects that I've been thinking a lot about being a bilingual reader. The reason why I started thinking about making this video was because a couple weeks ago, or was it a month ago? I don't remember. My memory is horrible. I met up with the lovely Stephanie from the channel That's What She Read. Hey, Stephanie, if you're watching. And with her husband, and they came here to Mexico City, and we met up and we spent a day together, and I showed them around, took them to some different not so touristy parts of Mexico City. We had dinner. It was really good, really interesting, and lovely to meet someone like Stephanie and everybody who came with her. But I started talking to her, and I started thinking, because when she was here, she told me that she bought a copy of her favorite book, 100 Years of Solitude, in Spanish. So, Cien Años de Soledad, which is the original version of the book. And we started talking a little bit about this, and talking with her and with her husband, and having this experience, which is really like an encounter and a clash of English-speaking people and me, was very interesting, and it got me thinking. Something that I was telling them about the part of Mexico City where I live is that you do expect people to be bilingual. You do expect people to read and speak and use English as well as Spanish. But that's not common for everybody. It's just very specific to my area. So I started thinking a lot about this, and anyway, here I am with some of my thoughts on being a bilingual reader, because I feel like that's something that very much defines me as a person, as just one reader, the channel, because I do read mostly in English, but I do read in Spanish as well, and it's something that is very much a part of my identity as a reader and just as a person. Even as a therapist, I've had patients from other countries who live here in Mexico City, and we have therapy sessions using English, sometimes even a mix of Spanish and English. It's very, very interesting to see how these things play out. So one of the first things that I thought about being a bilingual reader is how here in Mexico City, and this is really just talking about my own experience here, everybody sort of has to be bilingual. Not everybody can be bilingual, because not everybody has the opportunities to study English on top of Spanish, regular mother language Spanish, but everybody is expected to be bilingual here in Mexico, because we need to accommodate to a culture that is very Americanized here in Mexico City in particular, and for the rest of the country as well. I think culture tends to be very Americanized. In this area where I live, especially, everything is incredibly Americanized. I was showing Stephanie and company how much it feels like a version of Manhattan or Chicago or an American city. It's pretty much the same. We have American things, American restaurants. Everything is in English, as well as in Spanish, but it's kind of expected. It's part of the culture. Just look at me. I make videos in English, and I am as Mexican as they get. I am the most Mexican of the Mexican. But yeah, what I wanted to say first is that everybody is expected to be bilingual. Now, from my experience as a reader, this has been really interesting, because I started reading, just reading in general. I started acquiring the skill of reading in Spanish when I was maybe 5. I was a pretty early, precocious kind of reader and writer. And I started doing it around 5, 6 years old. And then I was lucky enough to go to a school that was bilingual, and so English was just part of the way that things worked there. So everything was in English. The school that I went to had a British kind of model, which was strange. ¿Te puedes callar un segundo, por favor? Ay. Being bilingual. See, I talk to my dogs in Spanish sometimes in English. So this video is just very casual, so bear with my dogs who have gone crazy momentarily. So I went to this school and it was in English, everything was in English, and I started reading and speaking in English at a very young age. I remember the first books that I probably started reading on my own, like outside of the classroom in English, were a series of unfortunate events by Lemony Snicket. And then when I was, I don't remember, in 2003. Yeah, 2003. So I was 12. When I was 12, I read Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix in English. And that was like my first huge book in English. It was over 800 pages. And it was a big endeavor for a Mexican 12-year-old to read that. It took me about a month, but I loved the experience. So that's been kind of my journey as a bilingual reader. And when I got to that point of reading Harry Potter 5 and then Harry Potter's 6 and 7, I just started reading everything that I could in English. Even the books that I had already read in Spanish, like for example, The Lord of the Rings, Historic Materials, those were books that I had already read and loved in Spanish translations, but now I read them in the original English versions. So being a bilingual reader, having that opportunity and being so fortunate really opened up a lot of doors for me in terms of art and culture. And I started realizing that there were some really good translations, like the Harry Potter translations I think are very decent. But then there are some translations that it's not that they're bad, they just don't work. They're not as faithful, or they're not as accurate, and they cannot really do justice to the original material. And I want to give you some examples of this. So around 3 or 4 years ago, I started reading The Secret History by Donna Tartt, but I started reading it in Spanish, and I didn't love it as much. I liked it mildly. And then I read it in English, and it was like a completely different book. It was just amazing. And I get it because it's Donna Tartt. Donna Tartt is all about the writing, the language, the style. So that's just one instance in which I very clearly confirmed that original always is the best. Another example is, again, with Donna Tartt. I read El Jilguero, which is the Spanish translation of The Goldfinch, and I really loved it. But then I read it in English now, and I was floored, like, pick up your jaw from the floor. It was just amazing. And again, the translation was good, but had I not had the opportunity of reading it in the original English, I never would have gotten the optimal, grandiose experience of that book. Now, this point leads me to my final point in this video. Again, I would love to say many things more, but I have to end this video sometime. The final thing that I want to say here is there are some books in Spanish that have been translated to English. And so I was thinking precisely about Stephanie's favorite book, which was 100 Years of Solitude, 100 Years of Solitude. I read that book in the original Spanish, as it should be, And that is precisely a book, a perfect example of a book in Spanish, originally in Spanish, that I just cannot imagine in English. And even though the English translation and the other translations are probably very good, there is something quintessentially like Latin about that book, in the language, in the craft, the styling. I don't know how to put it into words, but it's not, you cannot translate that. So I don't picture that book in English, you know, and that got me thinking, well, I have to make a video talking about this issue because it's something that I've always had to live with, being bilingual and having that great opportunity of having two languages that I can think of and speak in and read. And it really opens up different ways of thinking. And so I guess the real last thing that I want to say is something that they say in the movie Arrival, you know, with the aliens, something that they say in that movie, and I think it's very true, is that language shapes thought. And it's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. The language that you, or the languages that you grow up speaking and reading and using really model and shape your personality, your psyche, your way of thinking, your way of learning, everything in your psyche. There are some psychoanalytical investigations about this, and so I think it's true because I see it in myself and in other people around me. It's a very different way of thinking, and so reading a book in one language as opposed to another is also a very different experience. I don't want to say that you can only read the original version of a book because that would be very limiting, and we cannot do that. We cannot read every single language that is out there. But yeah, I guess I don't really have a conclusion. I don't really have a point. I just wanted to ramble for a bit with you about this topic. So if you have stayed to the end of this video, two things. Firstly, let me know if you are a bilingual reader, what have been your struggles, and most importantly, what have been your achievements, or what have you gained from being a bilingual reader, I guess. What opportunities have opened up for you? And secondly, I'm gonna end this video with a song, but I'm gonna sing it bilingually. I'm gonna sing it in English, the original English, and then the Spanish translation. So, thanks for watching. I am Just One Reader, and here is Defying Gravity from Wicked. Something has changed within me. Something is not the same. I'm through with playing by the rules of someone else's game. Too late for second guessing. Too late to go back to sleep. It's time to trust my instincts, close my eyes, and leap. It's time to try defying gravity. I think I'll try defying gravity, and you can't pull me down. No acepto las barreras que dicen no podrás. Si no las salto, yo jamás sabré si soy capaz. Creí que era malo fracasar en el amor. Si fracase, perder el alma es peor. Me voy en contra de la gravedad. Lo haré en contra de la gravedad y no me detendrán. She has nothing to do with it. I'm the one you want. Soy yo. Voy hacia el horizonte donde se pierde el mar. Un mago me predijo: llegará tu hora de volar. And if I'm flying so low, at least I'm flying free. To those who'd ground me, take this message back from me. Que me muevo en contra de la gravedad. Lo haré en contra de la gravedad y ninguno me detendrá. And nobody in all of us, no wizard that there is or was, is ever gonna